The Philadelphia Eagles are headed back to the Super Bowl. Last time we saw them in this particular situation, they lost 38-35, I believe, against the Kansas City Chiefs. There was a controversial play at the very end of the game, which I'm sure you're going to talk about maybe in this topic, maybe when we do our Super Bowl predictions. But this is a little bit different. They dominated the Washington Commanders in this game, 55-23. They scored 7 rushing touchdowns, which is the most in playoff history for a single game in the Super Bowl era. So that's 1966. So it's utterly ridiculous. I think if you expand it to the NFL, I think the Bears maybe have one in like the 1940s, I believe. Don't quote me on that. It's something like that. But in the Super Bowl era, 7 rushing touchdowns in one game is the most in playoff history. So, they dominated all facets of the game. Capitalized on several turnovers here. Jalen Hurts had a very good game, 248 yards, which is the most amount of passing yards he's had in a playoff win in his career so far. Saquon Barkley broke off first play of the game for the Eagles on a 60-yard touchdown run. So the Eagles did a tremendous job. So my question to you is, what was your reaction to just this dominant victory from the Philadelphia Eagles?
Disappointment.
Disappointment?
Yeah, I was disappointed. I wanted the Commanders to win, actually, and I picked them. I thought they'd find a way. I mean, after what they did to the Lions with all the turnovers and the way Jalen Daniels played and the way their team has played the last 2 playoff games with no turnovers and really very, very smart football, very excellent coaching, excellent offensive coordinator calls, the defense being managed extremely well. I thought they'd be better than 55-23. And you look at the line score here, the Commanders had 3 in the first quarter, the Eagles 14. In the second quarter, the Commanders came back. They had 12 points, but the Eagles had 13. In the third quarter, the Commanders 8, the Eagles 7. But in that fourth quarter, no points for the Commanders, 21 for the Eagles. The Commanders just fell apart in the fourth quarter. And they were driving down the field. They were behind by 11 points. They passed the ball to Austin Eckler. He caught it. He fell down. He got up before he was touched. The ball was poked out, and they lost the ball. And then they just completely fell apart after that. Because if they hadn't turned the ball over so much, the 4 turnovers, and Eckler's being the one that really I think was the straw that broke the camel's back. They hadn't had those turnovers. The Eagles had 28 points off those turnovers. You take those away, and you compare it to the score, the Eagles were ahead 27-23. It's a game. Who knows how it might have come out, but that's the way it turned out. I don't put any of this on Jalen Daniels. He was 29 of 48, 255 yards, a TD. I thought he played well. He ran the ball 6 times for 48 yards. He wasn't Superman in this game, but no, do you expect that from every time from a rookie to go out there and be Superman and win a game for you that nobody expects you to win? And he'd done it so many times. That's what I guess would have had to happen to get them over the hump. And maybe I fell for it because I did pick the Commanders to win. Hurts had a great game, 11 catches for 104 yards. He used to play for the Eagles, so I'm sure he was really wanted to get back at them there, and he did his job. No question about it. The thing I don't understand, why don't they get the ball to McLaurin more often? I mean, when he gets it, he does something really good with it. He only had 3 catches, 51 yards, and a TD. The guy is great. When he gets the ball, he makes something happen. So I don't know why they don't get him the ball more. On the other side, you mentioned Hurts, a nice game, 20 of 28, 246 yards, and a TD. He also had 3 rushing TDs. He's the only player in NFL history to have more than one game, and he has 4. Or he passed for 200 yards and scored 3 TDs. No other player in NFL history has more than 1. So that's pretty interesting for him. Barkley, 15 rushes, 118 yards, 3 TDs. Hurts, 10 rushes on 16 carries, 10 of 16, 10 carries for 16 yards, I should say, and 3 TDs. A very productive game for him. A.J. Brown, who I don't really like very well because I think he's cocky and reading that book on the sidelines to me is chaos, crazy. He had 6 catches for 96 yards and a TD, and he had a lot to say to the defensive players there. He's a wise guy. Goddard, 7 catches for 85 yards. My takeaway in this game, there is no way a team is going to win a championship game when they turn the ball over 4 times and give up 6 rushing touchdowns, which the Commanders proved. They lost. Interestingly enough, they had the ball down 11, driving for a TD with plenty of time left in the game. If they'd scored that TD, it would have been a 3-point game. With a 3-point game with a 2-point conversion if they'd scored the TD. And the fourth quarter, plenty of time left in the fourth quarter when Eckler fumbled the ball. I couldn't believe it. That was so bad. And then the wheels just came off and the Eagles just blew them out. The season's over for the Commanders, but rookie quarterback Jalen Daniels announced his arrival in a big way this season. There's hope in the D.C. area for the first time in a long time that the Commanders can be a threat in the NFC for many years to come. There's a nice comeback for the Eagles, who were bounced in the first round last year. They fired both their coordinators, brought in Barkley, and now they're going to the Super Bowl. So I think good for the Eagles. I don't begrudge them at all. I'll be rooting for them in the Super Bowl. I felt bad for the Commanders because they beat themselves.
I thought that the way that this game started, and let's actually put up how this game started. This was after the Commanders did a beautiful job executing on like every single 4th down opportunity that they took on that first drive. How did the Eagles respond? The first play from scrimmage was a 60-yard touchdown from Saquon Barkley.
That was a shocker.
And by the way, look at these 2 broken tackles.
I know.
Spinning,
terrible.
juking, and then gone. That's how the Eagles started this game off. And that's how they're going to probably win the Super Bowl if they are going to win. It's going to be on the back of Saquon Barkley, which then I'll just add out there, if there are any Giants fans watching right now, your GM gave this guy away for $250,000. And also because he said he doesn't want to use a $40 million quarterback to hand it to a $12 million running back. That logic doesn't make a lot of sense because the Eagles are doing it with the $50 million quarterback, handing it off to like a $13 million running back. So for me, the logic again, and I've said this all the time talking about the Eagles and Saquon Barkley. I feel bad for John Mara because he said on Hard Knocks he doesn't think he can get a good night's sleep if Saquon goes to the Eagles. Well, it's been like, 8 months? I don't think John Mara's had a good night's sleep in 8 months. So it's unfortunate, but this is the way that it is. I think the Eagles executed their game plan beautifully. They stuck to their game plan, and honestly, they expanded it a little bit because Jalen Hurts had a slightly bigger role in this game. 240, was it 240? I said 248 earlier. Excuse me, 246 passing yards was the most amount of passing yards in a playoff game, in a playoff win that Jalen Hurts has had in his career. And here are the numbers. I've talked about it before because normally when the Eagles win, it's not because Jalen Hurts is Superman. In fact, the numbers say this. Because when they win, he averages under 200 total NFL yards. He has 11 touchdowns to only 1 turnover. Pass rating of nearly 100 and 67% completion percentage in those 5 wins. In the 3 losses, he has over 300 total yards per game. He has a 65% completion percentage, 6 touchdowns to 4 turnovers, and a sub-88 passer rating. So this is the way that the Eagles, and this is how Jalen Hurts performs. That's why I think that if it really came down to it, if Lamar Jackson didn't have like a 5,000 total yard season, and we were in the exact same situation that we were last year with Brock Purdy, I would do the exact same argument that I would say with Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's not the MVP of this team. It's clearly Saquon Barkley. Does that make, in that case, Brock Purdy a bad quarterback, and in this case, Jalen Hurts a bad quarterback? Absolutely not. Because under this system, with Kellen Moore's offensive scheme, with Saquon Barkley being the primary piece of your offense and a tremendous offensive line, you need to be a game manager. And a game manager is not necessarily a negative connotation because Tom Brady was called a game manager for parts of his career. He won 7 Super Bowls. He actually, during that game manager phase, which was one of the greatest game-winning drives in NFL history against the greatest show on turf, with John Madden saying, let's wrap it up and play for overtime. What did Brady do as the game manager? Just made some key throws, ended up winning the game. But it was the defense that was the big story of that Super Bowl. In this case, throughout this entire season, the Eagles went from being one of the worst defenses to now being one of the best. Jalen Carter has played, 98% of the defensive snaps, and he's been all over the damn place. Cooper DeJean had a beautiful pass breakup on a 3rd and 5 early in this game. It was a key 3rd and 5 because it was an opportunity for the Commanders to pick up a crucial 3rd down and potentially score. I think Oren Burks had a tremendous impact early in this game. I thought also Quinyon Mitchell getting an interception. I think he also played tremendous. And we have to realize 2 of the guys that I just said are rookies this year. And they're both on the same team. Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean have had massive impacts throughout this entire season, and they're rookies. Jalen Carter's a second-year guy. I mean, the Eagles, and especially Howie Roseman, how does he keep getting away with this? How does he make these massive moves for key pieces, and it works out beautifully? Zack Baun, a crucial fumble. I think he had a fumble breakup and a fumble recovery. He may have had 2 fumble recoveries in this game. But, actually, excuse me. He had one fumble recovery. But he also had some key stops in this game as well. And also, so did Oren Burks, like I mentioned. He had 7 stops in this game. So the Eagles' defense is a story because they went from being one of the worst under Sean Desai and Matt Patricia to now being with Vic Fangio and having the best defense in the NFL. And guess what? That's easy to do when Saquon Barkley could just run it all the time, drain the clock. Jalen Hurts plays efficient football, doesn't turn the ball over like he did early this season. And then when they finally realized, let's just hand the ball off to a guy named Saquon Barkley and he'll do a bunch of the heavy lifting for us, well, that's where you'll find massive amounts of success. So I think the Eagles executed this game plan beautifully. They made Jaden Daniels' life very uncomfortable in this game, forced him into a lot of tight window throws, which he made a couple beautiful throws in this game too. But, I mean, the story about this is just the reinvention of their offense and especially their defense, Saquon Barkley being a massive upgrade from DeAndre Swift of last year and allowing Jalen Hurts to just be that sort of game manager, just executing Kellen Moore's offense to a very effective level. And that's why right now they're in Super Bowl 59.
Yeah, well, they changed a lot around. They fired both their coordinators. Sirianni was on the hot seat, and he delivered.
Absolutely.
You know, and they started out pretty shaky at the beginning of the season. And after their bye, everything went perfectly for them. The defense came around, and really, I think it winds up number 1, isn't it? The number
it's
one
the number
overall
1 defense in the NFL.
Ranked defense in the NFL. So, going to be a very interesting Super Bowl with the Eagles, I would say. And we'll talk about this on Friday. I hope. I'd say they're a stronger team now than they were in 21, and I do think the way they're using Hurts is much better than the way they used him back then. And the fact that Hurts, everyone thought he was hurt, right? Hurts was hurt, but he wasn't.
Right, yeah.
He didn't even put they disguised him.
I think
he had that
a
brace on. He had the brace
drive,
on.
yeah.
But no, he took it off.
Right,
he didn't have the
right.
brace on at all. And he looked great. So he wasn't hurt.
Well,
so that was something they kind of, I think the Commanders, I think that played well for the Eagles. Is Hurts, is he going to be affected by his knee injury? And he really didn't have one. Or if he did, they shot it up with something so he couldn't feel anything. I don't know. But he looked great out there. He didn't look like he'd had any injury at all.
I think I was very, very nervous when I kept hearing about his leg injury because we remember that last year, basically the entire season, he had a lingering injury and he didn't look great through large portions of the season. He could not run very well. In this game, he had 3 rushing touchdowns. He had a couple design runs for him. And that's what worried me going into this game because Jaden Daniels executed very beautifully against the Detroit Lions defense that even without their best player still stepped up in some big moments, especially in the biggest game of the season up to that point against the Minnesota Vikings for the NFC North and the number 1 seed in the NFC, and they made Sam Darnold see ghosts. They brought him back to New York Jets Sam Darnold. Didn't allow him to score a single touchdown in that game. And against the Detroit Lions defense, Jaden Daniels executed a beautiful game plan. And the Eagles with Jalen Hurts, with Nick Sirianni, with Vic Fangio, with Kellen Moore. I mean, this Eagles team, I thought that and here's what I think. I think that the Eagles have a beautiful opportunity because they've already stopped the 3-peat before, New England Patriots, from 16 to 18. That 2017 year, they stopped them. They had an opportunity, the Patriots had an opportunity to go 3 straight.
Please don't remind me.
Hey, blame Belichick for that. Malcolm Butler benching, still massive mystery. But I think they have a beautiful opportunity to stop the Chiefs here. And I think that the Lions, if they got to the Super Bowl, with the way that their defense was so banged up, I think that they would have had 2 breaks throughout the playoffs. The number 1 seed bye and then the Super Bowl bye to get even healthier. And there was a report that's saying that Aiden Hutchinson could have been back for the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And I think that could have also, sort of tipped the scales in the Lions, would have been the Lions' favor. And in this case,
would have been interesting to see a Lions-Eagles game. I would have been, it would have been very interesting. I mean, maybe you argue the Lions had just an off night and the Commanders snuck in there.
Well, but Jared Goff had, 4 turnovers in the game?
Know.
It was bad.
Yeah, it was an off night, definitely.
I think the Eagles, the way that they played on defense, they're the number 1 defense.
But the Eagles defense,
the
Eagles defense number 1.
Mitchell, Xavier Worthy. I want to see that matchup every day.
That's going to be great.
Cooper DeJean also.
Eagles defense number 1, and the Chiefs being a little suspect against the run. Look what the Bills did to them.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And now they're going up against Saquon Barkley and Hurts. And with a different strategy than they've had in the past, which is more game management for Hurts,
right?
And less risk being taken. I think I like the Eagles' chances.
Well, we have to remember in that prior Super Bowl, in that 2022 Super Bowl, Jalen Hurts ran it 15 times for 70 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. The running backs ran it 14 times for 37. Or excuse me, if we include Boston Scott in this, 17 rushes for like 40 yards. A little over 40 yards.
Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I think
Saquon Barkley.
I think that Saquon clears Boston Scott, Miles Sanders, and as well as his now teammate Kenneth Gainwell a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, even Will Shipley got a massive run late in this game, too.
I know.
He ran for, a 30, 40-yard run in this game.
The Commanders fell apart in the fourth quarter.
And then, you know what? That's the big thing. That's what matters a lot to me because you could turn the ball over every which way. You have to capitalize, though. You have to put up the points.
And they did.
For that turnover to even matter.
They did.
The turnover on a box score looks perfect. It
4 turnovers, 4 touchdowns.
Right. And that's why a turnover on a box score looks terrible. Because you're like, oh, my God, they turned the ball over 3 times. Then you look at the drive list, you watch the game, you're like, okay, but those 3 turnovers only equated to 3 points or no points.
Yeah.
A perfect example of that is in the Texans-Chargers game. The Texans fumbled on their first drive on their own, 33-yard line? The Chargers put up a field goal. And they moved a total of, 11 yards, something like that, or maybe even less than that. So it's all about how do you capitalize on those turnovers. Jared Goff turned the ball over a lot against the Commanders. The Commanders responded with touchdowns. The Eagles, how did they respond to this one? 4 turnovers, a bunch of touchdowns.
4 touchdowns.
I mean, that's the key to capitalizing on turnovers, because if you can't capitalize,
the turnover
never existed.
You just can't turn the ball over in a game like this. You can't turn it over multiple times. It's just you're gonna lose,
especially when you're a very young team with a rookie quarterback. You can't do that.
Yeah.
If you're the Kansas City Chiefs, who always seem to pull something out of their hat, then maybe you can. Because currently during this entire playoff series, they're the only team to have a turnover in a game and win. Hi, everybody. Thank you for watching this clip of the Harvey Hour. If you want to watch the full show, you can by clicking the I in the top right-hand corner right now. If you want to take the show with you on the go, it is available wherever you get your podcast. We go live here on YouTube every single Tuesday and Friday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, and the notification bell to get notified whenever we upload a video and whenever we go live.